that it was done by somebody inside of the home because there was a lack of footwear impressions in the snow.
No footprints in the snow, therefore no intruder. Well, there was a reason why there was no footprints in the snow. There was no snow.
Hello, and welcome into another episode of Examining the Evidence in the case of JonBenet Ramsey. In this episode, I will address some of the fallout from the Netflix docuseries Cold Case Who Killed JonBenet, and dig into some of the more egregious absurdities I found while watching the heavily invested Intruder Did It documentary. I gotta say that after I watched the 3 episodes one time through, that if it weren't for JonBenet's name in the title, I would think that this documentary was about some other case entirely. The series is rife with mis and disinformation and largely misrepresents the facts and evidence of this case. I've said this before and it needs to be said again. The JonBenet Ramsey case from the very beginning has suffered from a steady, sensational stream of alternative facts populated by the Ramseys, their own private investigators, and chosen media heads to metastasize it out. In the new Netflix doc, one of the first things that jumped out to me was the whole selling of the no snow narrative. That there was no snow in the Ramseys' yard on the morning of the 26th, therefore how could the police say and the media report that there were no shoe prints in the snow? But the fact is, however, there was snow. A lot of snow. The Ramseys' whole front yard was covered with a blanket of snow seen here in these crime scene photos, taken on the morning of the 26th. The back or south side of the home had less snow, and even large portions of the walkways were absent of snow, which of course was majorly underscored by the Ramseys. However, at 9 minutes into the first episode, Mr. Ramsey contradicts the whole no snow narrative being sold throughout the whole show. John retells the events of the early morning scene when Officer French first arrived at 5:59 a.m. French asks John, is it possible that his daughter may have run away? And John replies, no, she is 6 years old, it's cold, dark, and it was snowing.
Squad car came and one officer came in and I told him, hey, we found this note, our daughter's missing. So, hey, sure she didn't just run away? No, she was 6 years old. It's cold out, it's dark, it's snowing.
Also, in Ramsey's 2012 book, The Other Side of Suffering, again, as he recalls the events of that morning, John tells us when he first wakes up, he looks out his window and sees the stars illuminating through the open patches in the snow. The truth is, however, there were random shoe prints found in the snow in the Ramseys' front yard that morning. There were also bicycle tracks presumably made by JonBenet and her brother. But here's the real kicker, the key. The reality of the crime scene that morning wasn't about whether shoe prints were in the snow or not, but rather the frigid frost that laid bare on the Ramseys' brick walkways and wooden floor balconies on that chilly 9-degree day after Christmas morning in Boulder. Officer Paul Reichenbach, the second police officer on the scene that morning following a walkthrough of the home, conducted a search of the exterior of the Ramsey house and observed in his report that there was frost on the grass and a little bit of snowfall on the exposed areas of the lawn. He noted that no one other than himself had walked through these. Evidence of this frost can be seen here in these crime scene photos shot by CSI Barry Weiss shortly after 7 a.m. These photos are of the balcony connected to JonBenet's room on the second floor. Weiss observed that the balcony door of JonBenet's bedroom was closed and locked. He also noted that it had been a very cold night and observed a light coating of frost on the exterior bedroom balcony floor and railings. Weiss took photos before, showing there were no marks of disturbance visible on the balcony prior. He then took after photos of the balcony floor showing his footprints in the frost that you can see right here. So, where does that leave us? What does it all mean? Well, not a lot, actually. Was there snow? Yes. Were there shoe prints in the snow? Yes. A random one here and a random one there. But the pertinent thing to point out here is there were no visible trails or clear path of prints coming to or egressing from the Ramsey home that morning. This makes the no snow argument mostly irrelevant. However, in this case, we do have a shoe print that is relevant. The shoe print that was found in the efflorescence in the wine cellar at ground zero of the crime scene. The clearly visible high-tech shoe print was photographed by CSI Everett on the night of the 26th of December and was investigated exhaustively by the police. Detective Ron Gossage contacted over 400 people, even construction workers, who had been in the house 5 years prior. And the search turned up nothing. Nothing until years later. After numerous police interviews and grand jury testimonies, the police were eventually able to determine the high-tech boot print belonged to the Ramseys. Specifically, it belonged to JonBenet's brother. In an interview from 2000, it was found that he had told the grand jury that he did indeed own a pair of high-tech hiking boots. Two of his friends also told the grand jury the same thing. He even commented how the compass on the shoelaces reminded him of the compass on airplane dashboards. Now, this doesn't mean anybody killed anybody. However, the point to pause on here is not that JonBenet's brother owned high-tech boots, but rather the Ramseys' incessant denial to this day that he did not, and still selling that the shoe print is some proof of an intruder. In their investigation, just because the police found out that pieces of paper used to write the ransom note came from a notepad inside the Ramseys' own home, and that a pen used to write it also came from the Ramseys' own home, and that the murder weapons, the flashlight, or perhaps the bat, and the broken paintbrush were all items owned by the Ramseys. And just because they eventually determined that the palm print on the cellar door and the shoe print on the cellar floor both were made by a Ramsey, doesn't mean the police are unfairly targeting you. It means they are following the evidence. The darker the sky, the brighter the stars. Are you watching closely?